There is something sitting on your nightstand right now. You bought it because someone in a white coat told you it would help you breathe. You set it up, filled it with water, turned it on, and went to sleep, trusting it completely. And every single night since then, while your eyes were closed and your lungs were pulling in 8 hours of slow, steady breath, that machine has been doing something nobody warned you about. This is not about fear. This is about something far more interesting than fear. This is about the psychology of trust, the mechanics of how modern systems train your brain to stop asking questions, and the moment when an ordinary person finally looks inside something they have been using for years and finds a truth that changes everything. You do not question the things that are supposed to help you. That is not a flaw. That is human psychology doing exactly what it is designed to do. When a doctor recommends something, your brain files it under safe, under handled, under not my problem to think about anymore. Psychologists call this delegated cognition. You outsource the mental burden of a decision to someone you trust, and your mind rewards you for it by releasing you from the anxiety of uncertainty. It feels like relief. It feels like wisdom. And sometimes it is both of those things. But there is a shadow side to delegated cognition that almost nobody talks about. When you stop questioning something, you also stop seeing it. The humidifier on your nightstand stopped being an object the moment it became a prescription. It became invisible in the way that familiar things become invisible. The coffee maker you pass every morning, the smoke detector on the ceiling you have not looked at directly in 3 years, the toothbrush holder you rinse but never scrub. Familiarity is one of the most powerful forces in human perception, and it works by making the ordinary disappear. So let us make it visible again. A humidifier works by taking the water you pour into its reservoir and converting it into a fine mist that disperses into the air of your room. The principle is simple and the intention is good. Dry air can irritate the nasal passages, aggravate respiratory conditions, and disrupt sleep. The device exists for a legitimate reason, and the doctor who recommended it was not wrong to do so. But here's what the prescription left out. Water sits still inside that reservoir, and still, warm water in a dark enclosed space is one of the most welcoming environments that exists in nature for microbial life. The first time a researcher formally documented what happens inside a contaminated humidifier, and what it does to the lungs of the person breathing its mist, the year was 1959. A physician working in Switzerland described patients who had developed fever, persistent cough, and a progressive shortness of breath that nobody could explain. The patients were not near chemical plants. They were not exposed to industrial pollutants. The trigger, when finally identified, was the device sitting in their rooms meant to make them comfortable. 6 years later, an American researcher documented a cluster of office workers who developed the same constellation of symptoms. Same fever, same cough, same lungs filling with an inflammatory response the body mounts when it believes it is under attack. The source was a contaminated humidification system in the building they worked in every day. The medical literature eventually gave this pattern a name, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, with a specific subtype documented so frequently in connection with home humidifiers that it earned its own informal label, humidifier lung. That was decades ago. The literature did not stop there. By the 1970s, researchers had identified specific bacterial species colonizing humidifier reservoirs and confirmed their presence in the lungs of people made sick by the devices. A 30-year-old woman developed recurring fever, shortness of breath, and dry cough every time she ran her bedroom humidifier. When doctors cultured the water in her tank, they found it. When she stopped running the machine, she recovered. When she started again, the symptoms returned. The experiment was accidental, but the conclusion was airtight. In 2024, a case study from a medical school in Illinois reported a man in his 30s hospitalized with progressive lung damage visible across both lungs on imaging. The initial diagnosis was pneumonia. 3 rounds of antibiotics did nothing. He kept deteriorating. Only when a physician finally thought to ask about his environment did the right question get asked. He had been running a home humidifier every day for a year. The reservoir was cultured. Bacteria were confirmed growing inside it. A lung biopsy confirmed hypersensitivity pneumonitis. The treatment was not a 4th antibiotic. The treatment was throwing the humidifier away. Now here is the psychology question that nobody asks. If this has been documented in peer-reviewed medical literature since 1959, why did your doctor not mention it when writing the prescription? Why is there no warning printed on the front of the box, your humidifier came in? Why does the manual bury the cleaning schedule in small print near the back? The answer involves something that behavioral economists call the information architecture of trust. When an industry becomes large enough, when its products become embedded enough in the routines of healthcare and daily life, the incentive to distribute uncomfortable information shifts. Not because anyone is sitting in a room deciding to deceive you. It is more subtle and more systemic than that. It is the quiet logic of a business model that depends on you doing one specific thing, continuing to buy. The humidifier industry in the United States generates over $1 billion a year. The revenue does not come entirely from the device itself. It comes from the consumables that the device is designed to require. Replacement filters, demineralization cartridges, proprietary cleaning solutions marketed as the only safe way to maintain what you own. The model is not new. You have seen it with printers and their ink cartridges. You have seen it with razors and their replacement blades. You buy the device, and then you bleed money on the accessories, sometimes for years, sometimes forever. What dismantles that model is a piece of information so simple it is almost embarrassing once you know it. The United States Environmental Protection Agency, in its own published guidance on home humidifiers, recommends cleaning with ordinary 3% hydrogen peroxide, the kind sold in brown bottles at every pharmacy in the country for under $2. Distilled white vinegar, acetic acid at 5% concentration, kills the majority of mold and bacterial species that colonize standing water reservoirs. It costs the same. You can find both of them at any grocery store, any drugstore, any Walmart or Target or Corner Market in any state. $2. That is the number that makes the proprietary cleaning solution industry disappear. That is the number that makes the $40 antimicrobial filter cartridge unnecessary. $2 and the knowledge that you need to use it consistently. But here is what makes the psychology of this situation so revealing. Knowing the solution is not the same as using it. This is one of the most persistent findings in behavioral science. The gap between knowing what to do and actually doing it is not a gap in information. It is a gap in habit, in attention, in the 1,000 small frictions that stand between a piece of knowledge and a changed behavior. The humidifier on your nightstand has been there so long it has become part of the furniture. The routine of filling it before bed is automatic. The routine of cleaning it is not, because nobody built that routine into the system you were handed. Daily habit formation research consistently shows that behaviors attached to existing anchors, meaning they are tethered to something you already do every day, have a dramatically higher completion rate than behaviors left to willpower alone. You brush your teeth every morning, not because you decide to every morning, but because the toothbrush is there, and the bathroom is part of a chain of automatic behavior. Your nervous system runs on autopilot. The same principle can protect you here. Empty the tank every morning when you wake up. That is the anchor. You are already awake. You're already near the bedroom. You are already in the transition from sleep to activity. Wipe the reservoir dry. Set it to air. Refill with distilled water, not tap water, before bed that night. Every 3 days, run the interior surfaces with diluted vinegar or a small amount of 3% hydrogen peroxide. Scrub with a soft brush. Rinse thoroughly. Dry completely before reassembling. Not once a month when you remember. Not at the start of winter when you pull it out of the closet. Every 3 days. Because the research showing what begins to colonize standing water in enclosed, warm spaces measures the timeline in days, not months. There is something worth sitting with here that goes beyond the practical information. There is a psychological phenomenon called the competence paradox that operates quietly in the background of modern medical culture. The more sophisticated the healthcare system around you becomes, the more you are trained subtly and consistently to defer to it, to trust the label, to trust the prescription, to trust the white coat. And for the most part, that trust is warranted. But it was never designed to replace your own attention and observation. It was designed to work alongside it. The case reports that fill the medical literature on humidifier lung share a striking common element. In almost every documented case, the patient and their physician had been treating symptoms, sometimes for months or longer, that the contaminated device was generating. Steroid nasal sprays, antihistamines, repeated office visits, prescriptions for conditions that had no cause to resolve because the cause was sitting on the nightstand, plugged in, running every night. The system optimized for treating symptoms because that is what the system is built to do. Nobody optimized for asking whether something in the home environment was producing the symptoms in the first place. That question is yours to ask, and now you know to ask it. If you have been using a humidifier for more than a few weeks without a consistent cleaning schedule, do this tonight. Unplug the device. Take it apart completely. Look into the reservoir under good light. If you see anything pink, gray, black, or any film coating the interior surfaces, that is biofilm. That is a community of microbial life that has established itself in your device and has been aerosolized into your breathing air, possibly for a long time. Mix equal parts distilled white vinegar and water, fill the reservoir, let it soak for at least 30 minutes. Scrub every interior surface with a soft brush. For staining that resists the vinegar, apply undiluted 3% hydrogen peroxide directly. Rinse thoroughly more than once. Dry every component completely before reassembling. Residual moisture means recolonization within 48 hours. And going forward, use distilled water only, not tap water. Tap water contains dissolved minerals that ultrasonic humidifiers aerosolize with remarkable efficiency into particles small enough to bypass your nasal filter and reach the deepest regions of your lungs. Researchers measuring airborne particle concentrations from a single ultrasonic humidifier running on tap water found levels that exceeded EPA standards for fine particulate matter, the standard that exists because particles of that size are associated with cardiovascular disease and lung damage. Your body has no defense against something that small that is delivered directly into the bedroom, air you breathe for 8 hours. One more truth, and this one matters enough to say slowly. If your breathing symptoms, your chronic cough, your recurring sinus issues, your unexplained morning congestion have been worsening over the months you have been using a humidifier, do not just clean it. Stop using it completely for 2 weeks. Keep track of whether the symptoms improve. If they do, you may be looking at a sensitivity response to what was growing inside the device. Tell your doctor. Ask them specifically to consider humidifier lung as a differential diagnosis. Show them the documented case reports if they are unfamiliar. Sometimes the person in the patient chair has to bring the question that the system was never built to ask. The Consumer Product Safety Commission knew about contaminated humidifiers and the health risks they posed. They published a safety alert in 1992. The Environmental Protection Agency has been publishing cleaning guidance for decades. The peer-reviewed medical literature has documented this since 1959. Not a single warning is printed on the front of the box. Not a single physician, in the overwhelming majority of cases, mentions it with the prescription. Because the system is not built to keep you informed. It is built to keep you buying. The psychology of invisible things is this. Once you see them, you cannot unsee them. The humidifier on your nightstand is no longer invisible to you. The question of what is inside it is no longer someone else's responsibility. You have the information now, and information changes behavior, but only when it is attached to a moment of genuine attention. This is that moment. If this kind of psychological and practical insight is what you are looking for, the work of understanding the systems that shape your health and your decisions without your full awareness, then subscribe to Secret Fix Vault. Every video here exists because somebody has to open the thing, the system sealed shut, and show you what is actually inside.